Thank you for joining me. This is KATI Whitledge with Beyond the Technique podcast. Today we're going to talk about the book every salon leader needs. No, it's not my own, I promise. No shameless plugs here. This is a new book to our industry with a tremendous amount of experience behind it. With a first-time guest, but a long-time industry guru, we have the one and only Heather Bagby here today. She is an international speaker, facilitator, and author recognized for her ability to blend data-driven strategy with human-centered leadership. Through her work, she provides transparent, courageous feedback that gets to the core of what drives organizations forward. She empowers professionals to align financial success with personal fulfillment, proving that thriving businesses are built by people who are both balanced and inspired. In her new book that you need to get for all your leaders, Beautiful and Balanced, Leaning into Happiness as a Business Advantage, she challenges conventional success by showing how operational effective happiness drives performance, retention, and business growth. Heather is the vice president of Summit Salon Business Center, where she partners with salon, spa, and school leaders to drive sustainable profitability and exceptional guest experiences. With a career rooted in leadership development, financial performance, and culture transformation, Heather is known for helping businesses translate vision into measurable results. This woman knows operations, and today she's going to share her book, her life, her journey with us. I can't wait. Without further ado, help me welcome Heather Bagby. Welcome to Beyond the Technique.
Thank you so much, KATI. I am more than honored to be here, and I appreciate you mentioning the book. I know you have one, and I'm a fan.
Thank you. Well, you have years of experience. You are a second generation salon owner. Like, I want to go back to the beginning for you of just
Sure.
a bit about you being in this industry. I was going to say, how did you get started? But this has been part of your family. Tell us a bit about your journey.
Yeah, I think the biggest irony of being in the professional beauty industry is the fact that it's the last place I ever thought I would be, to be honest, just because my mother is a hairdresser. She is the founder of our salon companies, and for those listeners that are the children of, this may resonate with them because, I always joke all of the rest of the kids got to go home after school. And in my case, I was at the salon quite a bit. So, spending a lot of time in that space, I was always very cognizant of the beautiful life we had because of that business. I was always very excited to be there at that time. But, if I'm being honest, when I was 17 and thinking about like, okay, what do I do next? I picked a college several states away, and I was kind of like, okay, this has been fun and I'm out.
What did you end up going to school for?
I got my undergrad in public relations, and then I went to work for an association management firm in Chicago for almost a decade. Worked in tech, worked in healthcare, worked in other industries, and came back into the professional beauty industry about 20, I guess it's been 23 years ago. So the joke is sort of on me because, after having all that time, both my kids were born in Chicago, and it was in the early 2000s that my husband and I decided to relocate to Florida to be near my parents, which kind of opened the door to, getting back into the industry.
I know. Tell us a bit about that. I mean, was this like I went in kicking and screaming, or this was like, wow, I really missed this and I want to be a part of it?
Yeah, I think one of the things that stood out to me coming back into the industry was really the people. Having had the experience of working when I was in college, I worked in athletics. So having the experience of working in that capacity and then going into other industries where, I love people in general. So you meet so many amazing people, but I don't really, or at least I haven't experienced any other industry that has this level of emotional intelligence, and to be around these types of individuals that really love what they do every day. And it just creates a dynamic that's really hard to explain unless you had other careers. You just, I always joke, even on the worst day, people in this industry, have they get to do what they love. So there's this spark of special energy that comes from that particular dynamic. So no, not kicking and screaming. When I moved back to Florida, I just said, hey, I'd love to be a part of the salons. I had no intention of being full-time in the industry. I was actually still working for my firm in Chicago and just, doing it remote. And slowly but surely, I started being in it 100%. So it was just a progression.
I agree with you that there's a special spark that is unexplainable. And I'm
Yeah.
so proud of it. And it's so much fun. I could imagine that you brought something also special to this industry for your business, the family business, having the experiences and kind of in a corporate world. What did that look like? And how, were there specific changes that you made that really propelled the business?
Yes, it was a learning curve for sure. Think of the time. So I come back into the salons in the early 2000s. I just want to mention that because I think culturally and the way that we lead people has evolved. And I think that evolution is really, really beautiful. Uh, but coming from the corporate world where it was very much I'm a Gen Xer, so I was in the do it because I said so generation. You go in, you get there before your leaders, you don't leave until after they leave. That could be a 8-hour day, that could be a 13-hour day. You learn a lot, but it was really, a different time. So when I came into the salons and having a leadership role eventually, it was I had to really learn how to see it from the perspective of a service provider and not so much from the perspective of a corporate infrastructure, which in the early 2000s was a little hierarchical, where today I think it's more fluid, and for good reasons. That evolution has been, I think, something that was needed and is certainly embraced.
And it's really your experiences that have led to the framework of your book. And off camera, we kind of spoke a little bit about that. I'm so excited for everybody here. Tell us about Beautiful and Balanced and really what you've created that is going to be so helpful, literally, for every leader listening today.
Yeah, I want to make sure that people don't tune out when I say this, but I'm a researcher at heart. That's what I do. My graduate work, my very first research project in graduate school was on growth mindset, the amazing Carol Dweck for anybody who is interested in learning more. And that kind of put me on a journey. And there were two other women who are very prominent people, one being Dr. Laurie Santos, who is the woman responsible for the science of happiness, and Angela Duckworth, who wrote Grit. Those are people that I was, really researching, and a lot of even my thesis kind of came from, diving deeper, more on the scholarly side, which that's where I say it gets a little boring. But all of these amazing scholars that were putting forward information that was so interesting and so much easier to understand and not tune out because it's not in such an academic voice, even though these are amazing, academicians that were doing these things. And you see it today in other contexts as well. Brene Brown, how they really have this lens to communicate so that these concepts are so widely used today because of research that then turns into human stories. And so my original idea, and Katie, this is how fundamental, I literally sent an email to my team at Summit Salon Business Center. That's like 160 people, and just said, hey, I'm working on a project. If anybody would be interested in being interviewed, I didn't say what it was because I honestly wasn't sure. Was it going to be something or not? And I went on social and I did some reels and I was like, hey, I'm working on a project if anyone would be interested in talking to me. And so I created a special link and I just started having people like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And I started interviewing. And, to me at first, I thought, okay, great. I'm going to gather all this information and I don't know, is it going to be an article? Is it going to be a blog? And I quickly realized, I think this is a book. I think it's about what entrepreneurs do on a daily basis.
Mm.
And I think it's also about the fact that happiness is such an interesting way in which to lead your company, because my belief is that happiness is not the absence of negative things.
Mm.
And for those who choose to read the book, what they will realize is there's a lot of challenge that comes in high performers. There's a lot of things that most people would quit. And, two things can be true at the same time. You can have a lot of joy in a moment, but also deal with a lot of heavy. But leaders that lean into happiness are certainly going to have better outcomes, better cultures, and at the end of the day, better profits because they realize that they're leading people, not positions.
Mm. And I had just heard a stat, which is wild, that 70% of industry pros leave after just 5 years of being in the industry. Do you think it's this? If it's negative, I am going to be done with it. When you're saying, hey, you can have the negative things and still find tremendous joy and happiness in this career. What are your thoughts?
I think that people, when they enter the industry, underestimate the amount of grit it's going to take to be successful. And, grit is a long-term goal, not a short-term goal. So to know it, it's almost like if you knew today what you were going to have to put into it, would you do it? And some people will say no, but others say, I needed to do all those things. I needed to fail in order to learn how to appreciate the wins.
Yeah.
I need to look at that failure as an opportunity to grow.
Hmm. And that's really a big mindset shift for many people
Yes.
too. And you have kind of this triple harmony happiness uh, perspective. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so it's the triple harmony happiness framework, and it's just a way to frame situations. So we look at it in three different ways. So first, we go to the head first. So the three things are head, heart, and hands. And if you think of it this way, the head is the strategy. So I'm going to build the strategy. I'm going to, from a very analytical view, figure out, is this something that I'm going to lean into? Is this worth my time? Another way to say it is I'm going to build a math model. Again, I know I hear myself and I think I sound boring, but I promise I like to have fun too. Uh, but if I build a math model for something, is it solid? So starting with strategy, but the second is then you've got to look at the heart, and this is where that emotional intelligence comes in. Am I, going to make sure that heart is at the center of what it is that I'm doing? And the third is the hands. This is that consistent action. And that's why I made that comment about grit, because having passion for long-term goals means that you're really going to be consistent with the things that you absolutely need to make sure are taken care of in your life. And I'll use this as an example because I'm an Italian. I love to eat. Food is a huge part of my life, and for me, food is something that I'm not ever going to be willing to give up. And it's more important to me than some other things. And so, I'm willing to like eat all the pasta if I want to. And then I realize that, from a weight perspective, that's not always the best idea, but I'm okay with that. That's just who I am. But I wouldn't make the same concessions when it came to my finances. And I hate to put like food and finance next to each other, but like,
Those are good comparisons. Yeah.
financially, I'm not willing to make decisions that would put my financial health in a negative space on purpose. It doesn't mean that I haven't made bad financial decisions because I certainly have. Um, but understanding that that grit factor when it comes to building a budget, sticking to it, making the tough decisions because of it, that you're doing that for the long term. And I don't know that everyone who enters the industry, whether it's a service provider or even a business owner, is willing to have that level of grit.
Can that change, or is it a lack of just awareness at the beginning of our careers? What do you think could help with that?
I think it can change. I think that if people understand that failure is an opportunity to grow, then grit starts to become something that's second nature. And I want to be clear because repeated mistakes are not what I'm talking about. Just to put some context, we all know those people that they keep doing the same thing over and over, and that's not a growth mindset or like a gritty person. But a lot of us, when we do make a mistake, as much as I hate that we have to have those lessons, they are profound. They are life changing. They are like, okay, I don't need to do that again. So I need to figure out. And I think it's hard early in this industry when you're not getting those immediate results and you have to face some challenges. And if you don't have passion for the long term, then it's probably time to go find something else to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay too.
Yeah. And what else are you passionate about that you've either discovered or really wanted to share in this book that leaders are going to just take and run and be able to apply to the teams they lead?
So the way that I set the book up is it's, 25 different stories. So if you like learning about people, I love learning about people. So the stories itself are just wildly interesting, things that people naturally go through over the course of their careers and their personal and their professional lives. But at the end of each chapter, there's a reflection exercise that goes through the head, the heart, and the hand. So it asks questions. So for those of you who choose to read it, you'll learn about someone's journey and then have an opportunity to sort of reflect on how that applies to you and your own journey. And what are behaviors that you could work on in order to move towards those results. And then ultimately, what I really discovered was just, wow, a lot these people they're all so different, yet they have these four things that kept coming up. Uh, and that was really cool to see that these four traits, and it's like these high performing people have these similar traits. And
You got to get the book to find out what they are, huh?
no, 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 no. No, but I'm happy to share them because I think they're obvious, and yet you'll see the correlations when you read the story. So one is grit, certainly what I was talking about, and just talking to different people, some really prominent people in the professional beauty industry, even, and the willingness to do the work, show up early, stay late, and understanding that you don't have to do that forever. So you don't mind doing it if you really want it. The willingness to volunteer, volunteer for a lot of things and use that opportunity to get better at something. And I'm not asking people to work for free. I want to be super clear, but I know everything that I've been able to achieve, I was willing to do it initially in a volunteer capacity to get really good at it. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, that level of abundance, the invitations, the things start to come forward based off of that principle. The second thing they have in common is they're all very altruistic. Altruism is the definition of happiness, and they acts of service is prominent. And altruism is interesting because if I do something nice for you, Katie, clearly that makes me feel good, and it also makes you feel good. So it is self-serving if we're being honest. But I want to do nice things for you. Hopefully you enjoy that, but it also makes me feel good. And so, that's certainly good for the soul. So lots of altruism involved. The third habit is expressions of gratitude. And I recognize that sounds very elementary, but if you study, neuroplasticity, if you look at people who have a lot of abundance in their lives, they set intentions to express gratitude.
Mm.
And that is a lot of thank yous, but it is also those handwritten notes, taking time every week to recognize people for certain things and really thanking them for being a part of their life, being a part of their journey. And the fourth one is spirituality. No, I want to not everybody of the same faith, clearly, and not everybody even identifying with a faith, but everybody feeling there is some purpose, some force,
Higher
that
calling.
higher calling, certainly a barometer that they live their life by to, do their very best to make sure that, those they're the things that they're doing are again serving others, those expressions of gratitude and showing up for themselves.
Love that. That's really neat to be able to discover that and just lean into it. And I agree with you that the gratitude thing is this obvious thing that everybody talks about it, but believing that something's important and, like you said, actually creating a consistent pattern to your life for that is
Right.
there's a gap there. Um, so thanks for shining a light on that piece. I just think this is awesome. And by the way, for everybody listening, you have the link in our show notes to get a copy of this book. Get one for all of your leaders. This could be your next book club. What I like, and Heather, I'll let you share a little bit about this, is you have a little kind of moment at the end for everybody to have some time to reflect. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so those reflection exercises, and I even say this in the book, like if you're not into journaling, I understand it. You certainly don't need to be writing, but it's just asking some fundamental questions. This is actually what the book looks like. I want to shout out to Brian Cornell. He is the person, if anyone
Love it.
sees this one,
Yes.
who did the artwork. He's so talented. But when you kind of go through, it may ask a question like, name a fear. What is one thing you've been avoiding because you don't feel ready yet?
Mm.
How can you turn your fear into faith? Something that you would just say, okay, I'm willing to give this a go. Um, and then list one small action you can take to move forward and then record whatever that is. So that's just an example of what a chapter may suggest. After you read the story of the person, to me, the most interesting thing is about the people. I learned so much. There are some people that I interviewed in this book that I've known for decades, and I understand them better. Listening to some things from their early careers, early days that totally shaped the way that they live today, the things that they do. Um, I don't know if you remember, Katie, years ago, those Chicken Soup for the Soul, like when it first came
Yes.
out.
Love
I
it.
was very drawn to that, in the mid 90s for sure. And there's a little that human element that's part of this. It's like learning about these people and learning about things that, happen to them and a lot of beautiful things that happen to them. And then, in some cases, a lot of massive challenges and what they did, what they chose to do to come out on the other side of it.
It's fun to be with you like this, Heather, because you kind of joke about yourself being taken seriously because you are a more maybe logical, analytical person naturally. But the more I get to know you, the more I'm like, no, you're all people in heart yourself. And
Oh,
this
well, thank
chicken
you.
soup for the soul, that brings back so many memories. We
I
had it like
know.
for moms, for kids, for teenagers,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like every
Yes.
time. That was so cool.
Yeah, anything that you needed, you could find one that would correlate to the subject.
Would there be any final words of wisdom or just moments in the book that you want to point out to that would really add just so much value and encouragement for everybody listening today?
Yes, I would say I sort of mentioned this in the book, but probably something that was so moving to me. is the idea that you can live your life peacefully, not necessarily perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, perfect doesn't exist. So you can find peace in when the things go sideways. You can find peace in the lesson if you choose to. You can find peace in the great decisions that you're making. You can find a lot of peace in the influences that you have on people. There's a lot of entrepreneurs in here sharing their stories, and even things like, hardships when employees choose to go work for other people or do different things, and all the people who choose to stay with them for the journey, and how important all of that is. Because how do you really appreciate what you've built if you're not leaning into the happy part of it?
And I'm just going to add leaning into people during any challenge to get to a peaceful place, because this is what makes the SSBC, that's the Summit Salon Business Center. Everybody's heard of Summit Salon Coaching. That's what this is. And that's what makes that community special, because while everybody kind of identifies that coaching platform as here are the systems, the operations, the coaches you have within your organization really lead to these areas to help owners feel and leaders that they're not alone when they go through times that will challenge their peace, when things aren't perfect. So I just wanted to plug that in, because Maya, who powers this podcast, has been really blessed to be a part of that community in a small way. And just the more we're around these humans, they're not just successful, they're also amazing people who want to be there for other people. So
Yeah.
I just appreciate you. Yeah, it's been awesome.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being with me, Heather. And hopefully we'll get to do this again sometime.
Absolutely. We can get into the financial metrics of the salon business in our next conversation, but you're not wrong. That's where the head, heart, hands comes in, because
Yeah.
the money can look one way, but the heart has to be there for sure. And then the consistent action is going to drive the result.
And like you said, it's that triple heart, it's the harmony among all of them that are so important. So thank you for teaching us today, shining a light on this. And yes, again, for everybody listening, go get a copy of her book. I'm going to get a copy. Our team, this is so great. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you all for joining us here week after week. If you love this platform, please take a moment, leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening, so that more people like you will discover Beyond the Technique, where we're here to change the way that you are supported in your business. Until next time, have an awesome day and stay strong.
Did you know over 60% of first-time clients do not return for a second visit? That is so painful, but it doesn't have to be that way. That's where Maya comes in. Maya is the ultimate marketing software for the beauty and wellness industry. We have a proprietary funnel utilizing special algorithms to help connect the right consumers with the right providers at your business. This means that Maya helps you get higher spending clients you love to work with who stay the long haul. If you want to increase your revenue, increase your client count, increase your average ticket, and increase your new client retention, then you need Maya. Go to joinmaya.com to set up your own personal virtual tour and see why over 500,000 consumers have trusted Maya and the businesses we work with to find their perfect beauty and wellness pro. We promise you will love Maya.